Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Tech Talk. I am your host, Jeff Hootselle. I'm the Chief Cloud Officer at Auditmacs. Tech Talk is a show we talk to IT leaders and subject matter experts in the field of technology. We talk about current events, we talk about trends happening in the industry, and we talk about some of these amazing companies that these folks work for. We've always got great guests. Today is no difference. Today we've got Josh Glastein. Josh is the CIO for Berkshire Residential Investments. Josh, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Jeff. It's good to be here.
Josh, you're coming at us from Boston, Massachusetts today. How are things up north?
Well, it's actually been sunny the last few days, and it's looking to get better. So we're having a good time out here. I'm enjoying some finally some spring weather. So
yeah, you got trees in the background. It's green. Looks sunny out there. Things are turning up.
Yeah, I may even sit outside for some of my work day today.
Yeah, there you go. That's one of the benefits of working from home, right?
That's right. Making the best of working from home.
Yeah. So Josh, maybe from the start, just tell folks a little bit about Berkshire Residential Investments and kind of what you guys do as a company and what makes you a little different from others in your field.
Sure. So Berkshire Residential Investments is it's a vertically integrated real estate investment firm. So we invest in and own and operate a multitude of multifamily residential investment properties. It's all in the multifamily space. Mostly it's residential. We also do things like senior housing and some other forms of what we would consider residential investments. We invest both on the equity side and the debt side of things. So not only do we own properties and manage them, we also invest in on the debt side. So we're funding other property investments as well. We have about $8.5-9 billion under management, and about 80 to 85 properties across the U.S. And obviously, we have debt investments that represent properties in almost all of the U.S. We probably represent or have properties that represent about 18 to 20 states in the union. So that's a good spread across the nation. We've been in business in one form or another for about 50 years. We started out as a family office, and in the last decade or so has switched over to institutional investing. So we have a lot of institutional clients that on whose behalf we invest our money.
No, that's terrific.
One of the things that No problem. Hey, Jeff. One of the things that differentiates us, I would say, is our vertical nature. So a lot of companies are either in our space are either investors or operators, where we invest and own and manage the properties that we invest in. That gives us the ability to really kind of create some streamlined opportunities and efficiencies across our portfolio, and we can leverage a lot of the things we do, especially on the technology side, across our entire portfolio, where other companies might not have that opportunity.
Yeah, so if you talk about kind of leveraging the technology and kind of everything you do and kind of your unique approach to the marketplace, you guys have made a lot of strides. We've talked before about kind of the digital transformation side of things and how you've kind of migrated to the cloud, over the past couple of years. Talk a little bit about your strategy there and what that's looked like and how you guys have approached that transformation.
Sure. Okay, so it's kind of been out of necessity more than anything else. So where we've had to, we have a small team, at least from an IT perspective. So we have a lot of responsibility in terms of supporting a large portfolio of properties. I didn't mention we have about 750 employees on staff, both in the investment side of the business as well as property management. So that's a lot of resources that we have to support, and I have a very small team to do that. So what we do is try and leverage best of breed technology through SaaS products that are hosted on the cloud. The more that they're hosted on the cloud, we can take advantage of top of the line technology for various needs with limited amounts of support or integration from our side or needs from my team. So some of the things that we've benefited from that, like I mentioned before, having the efficiencies across our property organization management, the management of all of our properties on one platform makes it a lot easier. So all of our properties existing throughout the United States are able to access the same platform on the cloud from wherever they are without ever even touching our networks. So like I've heard you talking to some of your other guests around security, we limit our exposure there to some extent by by segregating our network. So we don't have any of our properties actually attached to our corporate network. They access all of our property software in a digital environment on the cloud. So that's worked out really well for us and protected us in a lot of ways from exposure. On top of that, we're also on the investment side, well, on the property management side, we're trying to leverage more data than we ever have before. And this is somewhere that we really see a lot of opportunity. It's a little bit of an immature field right now, I guess, or our industry is a little immature in our use of technology and data analytics. So it's something we're really trying to branch into, and where we see an opportunity to differentiate ourselves and be able to make better decisions, both on the investment side and on the management of property side. We can make efficient decisions on how we spend money or how we invest in various investment opportunities.
Yeah, so Josh, I'm curious, obviously you talk about the opportunity there. A lot of companies are looking at this where they've got, you mentioned your unique position in the marketplace. You've got access to a lot of this data because how you guys approach your properties and your investments. But then you talk about how you begin to start to leverage that. As you guys have started projects and looking at that today, what's been the biggest surprise or biggest challenge that you've seen there with kind of making that jump?
Part of it is just as maturing as an organization and understanding that now that we do have this data at our fingertips, what is the best way to use it? So being able to figure out what questions we want to ask and get answered, that's sometimes the hardest thing to really get out of our business partners. It's something that we're doing. We're trying to experiment a lot and figure out what data we can access, how we can present it, how we can do some analytics on it and forecast certain behaviors. And in that way, we're working with various vendors who will be able to present that information in a way that's consumable by both our investors and our property management staff so that they can make better decisions. But it's kind of an evolutionary process. It's not something that we're going to be able to kind of switch on overnight. It's something we're going to work on over time and really integrate into our processes.
Yeah, it's interesting. You talk about the decision-making capability, and we talked to our previous guests about this, but with everything, in light of everything that's kind of happened with the pandemic and how this has disrupted the marketplace a little bit, every company's having to be a little more cost-conscious, about how they're spending their money and be wise about it. Really, make sure those are strategic investments. As you guys are looking at coming out of this, and your IT budgets and maybe what they were projected to be at the start of 2020, and where you're going to allocate those funds, and kind of maybe. Has that shifted a little bit now as we come out of this pandemic as far as where those funds go or how much scrutiny you guys put into the new projects and new technology?
It has a little bit, mostly in the fact that it's been deferred. So where any projects that aren't already in motion, we're trying to defer those until 2021 just to be cautious, right? We don't want to overspend now not knowing where we're going to end up as an economy. We're somewhat shielded in our industry a little bit because people always need a place to live, so we are somewhat recession or pandemic proof. However, as people may not have jobs where they did before, they may have trouble paying their rent, where we may have some exposure there. Thankfully, we haven't seen too much impact there yet, but that could happen. So we want to take precautions as necessary to really just think about how we want to spend our money. And so for that reason, we're just going to defer some of our spend to next year. That said, we always take a really concerted approach to make sure that any of our investments really solve specific pain points or have a return on investment to anything that we do spend on technology.
So, Josh, last question I've got for you. So, we've heard so much about all the negative that comes along with this pandemic, and there's certainly plenty of different ways you can go down that conversation. What do you think will be the kind of long-lasting positive things that come out of this? I'm kind of the serial optimist. I like to think there's a bright side to just about every situation. As you kind of look at this and kind of look down the road, are there any lessons learned or changes or trends you think will happen that'll be actually positive coming out of this predicament?
Well, one of the things that has worked really well for us. So last year, I don't know if we were just prescient of mind or whatever, we actually implemented Microsoft Teams during last year. So we expanded our collaboration abilities in anticipation of an incident just like this. I mean, one, it was to really bring our various communities across the United States together to be able to work on things simultaneously and collaborate and chat. But it was also in the case that we ended up in a situation like this where we couldn't meet face to face. A lot of our business is flying around, looking at properties, visiting properties. And right now we can't do that. So one of the things that really helps, and we've seen a huge just benefit from and ability to do is really collaborate remotely, and leveraging Microsoft Teams has been tremendous. So it's been really well received. And while we were using it before, the pandemic really brought it to the forefront. And now everybody's jumped on board and is just loving the platform. They're engaging with each other. And honestly, IT has really seen some appreciation come back to all the efforts that
Yeah.
we've made in the past year. So it's been kind of a showcase for us, I guess, more than anything else.
No, that's great. I think you can't underestimate the need for people to connect, and be able to see that face-to-face interaction and things like that. So that's great.
Yeah.
So, well, Josh,
right. I think that'll continue even after this pandemic, which is really the good takeaway from this, is that
yeah.
we know we have this capability now, and we're just going to keep using it and collaborate more and more despite the distance between us.
No, I think you're right. Well, Josh, thanks so much for joining us. We're glad we can connect this way over video as well, and great to get your feedback and input. I really appreciate you joining us today.
Sure thing. Anytime.
All right. And thank you guys for joining us as well. We'll look forward to seeing you on our next Tech Talk.